Back in 2013 and even before 2013, they painted the new boogeyman from following on from the Cold War with Russia. The new boogeyman was the Islamic terrorist, and they pumped that up there to bring in all of these anti-terror laws. And those laws are horrific. They include surveillance. They can crack the codes now of your passwords of any of your social media devices. And there's new laws that came in last year or late 2019 under the ASIO Amendment Act, which allowed them to, you can't pick which lawyer you want. You have to answer questions. There's no longer the right to remain silent. And of course, all of the indefinite detention are all designed to be able to hunt down people that disagree with the government and then to lock them up without any due process. And that's what they started off, and everyone accepted these laws because they thought, well, that doesn't apply to me. That applies to those evil Islamic extremists. But then, of course, right-wing extremism. Once the laws were in, everyone thought it doesn't apply to me. Well, suddenly, all of a sudden, right-wing, and they've got these, running these actors are putting scenes like these on to make out like it's actually there, even though it's not. So this is in 2020, just last year. Head of Australia's National Security Organisation, threat from espionage is now higher at the Cold War, got a bit tongue-tied, but they talk about right-wing extremism. So they've expanded, here we go, hateful ideology of right-wing extremists. And people who are left-wing or centre or even just a little bit right are thinking again that those laws don't apply to me. It's all good. Keep them there, bring them in, I'll be fine. No surprises here. Words matter. They do matter. Asia ditches right-wing and Islamic extremism labels as it changes its language on terror. So the headline means, I'm a right-winger, I'll be fine now, or I happen to go to a mosque on religious days, I'll be fine now. Well, not quite. So later on in the article, this guy says that right-wing and Islamic extremism no longer fit for purpose. From Wednesday, ASIO will start referring to ideologically motivated violent extremism. Well, your ideology is also your policy, your politics. So it's now started off Islamic, far right, everyone's still okay. Now they're expanding it. So you're right wing and you're a Muslim, you're still in trouble, but everyone else is in the same boat now. And religiously motivated violent extremism now, I guess that then takes care of the previous one where it was Islamic. They're now applying it to everyone. Not that I've seen too many Buddhists running around, haven't had actors running around in Buddhist suits pretending to blow stuff up and attack people with knives like they did with the Muslims, but that's what they haven't done that. But anyway, they've expanded it now. And this is interesting. Words matter. They can be very powerful in how they frame an issue and which is how they got all those laws in. So why do they want all those laws in? Well, we all know about Greece, but the most recent, I guess, example of a national collapse due to these banking predators is Lebanon. This was only on the 6th of August 2020. Lebanon's banking, economic and political systems were already under threat before the explosion. They're talking about that massive bomb they set off, pretending it had something to do with fertilizer or something, I don't know. But the coincidence and the timing of such a massive explosion that just tore through the people, it has a physical and a psychological, as we know, effect. And that was just, and that's right in the capital, right almost in their CBD, kaboom. That's how, I guess, powerful the foreign bankers are, the international bankers, that they can just blow up the center of a capital city of a nation and, paint some bullshit story around it and get away with it. But if we just keep continuing on in this article, this paragraph here, well before the explosion and even the COVID, which upended the world, well, COVID didn't, Lebanon was in the midst of the worst economic crisis in its history. The nation's currency has more than halved, and the pandemic is only, they're still talking about that explosion. I haven't seen massive destruction in my life. This is a disaster, catastrophe, nothing but a national catastrophe. But what was happening in Lebanon? The heavily indebted country has been sliding deeper in since October last year. Again, same problem as Greece. It all comes down to the debt. And we're getting articles in our mainstream media, debt doesn't matter. No, it's just forget about it. It's a good thing. I had it up on one of my videos. They're trying to paint, no, don't worry about debt. Well, this is why you should be worrying about debt. slowing capital inflows at the time only added to the country's worsening economic situation, sparking what was dubbed the October Revolution as protesters hit the streets in droves. Nothing to do with COVID, a bit to do with that explosion, I guess, but to do with debt. This is on the ABC. They'll actually put some news up sometimes. I don't recall this being splashed across. I mean, a nation unravelling. They don't have a government anymore. By January, Lebanese politicians have still failed to agree on a government. They don't have a government over there. How are they running things? Well, it's just left. They just want chaos, and that's what they're getting. I like this comment here. The state left us with two choices. We either die from hunger or we die from the disease. Let us die taking a stand, one protester said. And here we get into it. Banking and economic crisis leave many in poverty, but the political crisis is part of comparison to the banking and economic one. Don't worry about debt, everyone. Remember that story? So before COVID, the World Bank had projected 40% of Lebanese people would be in poverty by the end of 2020. Now, just think about that. You've got this international system. We've got AI. We've got computers so powerful now they can calculate anything. How isn't all of that ability to process just information and allocate resources or wealth, how is it that Lebanon back in the, say, 30s and 40s was one of the most beautiful countries in the whole world? So was Palestine. All the rich people used to go to Palestine from Europe. Now look at it. How could it go from that to now they're projecting people are going to be in poverty? And it's just got everything to do with the printing of currency. Who gets to create the money? And the people that create the money, they create this poverty. They create it. If they didn't want it to happen, it wouldn't happen. And it's coming to us. Here's our Australian debt clock. Now that's total Australian credit. That's $7 trillion. Government debt is now $1.4 trillion. That was, God, you go back a couple of years, it was about three. It was a quarter of that or even less. Household debt, total private credit. And just look at this graph. And that was around here. This wasn't long after Keating and Hawke decided to, I hadn't sold off the Commonwealth Bank yet. That was about here somewhere. But they had let all the foreign banks in off that Campbell Commission report, which was brought in under the Liberal government, Fraser, and then implemented by Labor. All we're doing is picking who gets the benefits of doing the functions of the money printers, because they determine all the major policies of every nation on earth. Hence, North Korea and Syria, who don't have a central bank, are the focus of them. But these numbers here, these are the reason why ASIO has expanded it to ideologically motivated violent extremism, because to them, these protesters in Lebanon, they're violent extremists. If you read the terror laws, see, killing people and destroying public property were already offences. All terror does is apply a motive to those offences. And motive would normally, as we know, just be either mitigation or aggravation in sentencing. So, you kill someone, if you're trying to steal something off them, well, that's aggravate. Your motivation is aggravation, so you get an increased sentence. If you're defending your family while the guy's an off-wielding maniac, well, that's mitigation, you'd probably get off. But what they've done is that against convention of law is they've applied the motivation into it, which comes down to the thought police. I don't want to go too much. I've covered that in other videos. Well, actually, it's been deleted on my old channel. God, I had some valuable stuff there. Still trying to find it all. But anyway, that's what these laws are about. This is coming to Australia when this debt gets way too big and we can't pay it off. And it becomes evident that, as we've read in this article, people are going into poverty. There's fuel shortages. They just start shutting everything down. People go, what the hell happened? Okay, so Lebanon might not have the same resources we've got. We've got ocean around us. We've got farmland. That's all being bought up by the foreigners to separate us from that. ANZ Bank has recently announced they're not going to fund the Newcastle port, which means they're separating us from our coal and taking virtually, when they're separating from us, they might as well pick it up and move it offshore. That's essentially, if we can't get to it here, it's like we don't have it. That's essentially what they're doing. But we have all that, and yet we will still end up the same as with food shortages. Could you imagine 26 million people on a continent this big, how could it not feed itself? That's what's coming. There's going to be food shortages. They're going to engineer it. I've really learned a lot off other channel creators and commenters that come to my channel. So valuable for me to learn. I just had a comment on one of my videos, one of the latest comments, and it's just a whole new world to me. I've got to try and get my head around it. This girl, she has a Australian. She has a YouTube channel. Boy, she goes deep. She's a bit like Romney Stewart. Anyway, I won't go further on with this one. It's gone long enough. So, yeah, just something we're going to have to fight. Now, obviously, the first fight right at the moment is this, the jab. But this is, and I've got a video coming up called "Could It Be So Easy?" Okay, because I actually had a bit of a manifesto on how to pull all this stuff back, because New South Wales is going to allow GMO crops now. Well, we got to stop that. We got to stop the land tax. We got to stop all of that stuff. It can be repealed just because it's in legislation. Stuff falls off legislation all the time. That's not a drama. All we got to do is get a hold of the seats of Parliament, and it's just that I thought it was going to be a big, long 20 to 30 year process, but I don't think it needs to be. I think we can have this show under control a lot quicker than that. And yeah, I'm still trying to poke holes in what I think can happen, and I can't do it at the moment. It just seems so simple. There's got to be a catch, but I'm working on it though, and I'll put it out. Actually, I might even put out a preemptive video later out today, just to show how simple it appears to be. Hopefully people could, well, not hopefully no one can, but if there are holes in it, let's find out what they are. We can plug those holes, but at this stage it just seems so easy. This ASIO guy, well, he won't have a job once we get control. Yeah, thank you very much, you $350,000 a year idiot working for people that aren't on our side. Yeah, you and many others. You won't be looking so good. All right, that's it for this one.